recording. Oh, here we go.
There we go.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
Happy day after Halloween, Amy.
Hey, well,
November
or
1.
Reformation Day.
There you go. Another way to say it.
Oh
All
man.
right, here we are.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We're gonna maybe one day we'll talk about that. I went on a 2-year deep dive. I was like, I thought Halloween was a Hallmark holiday. No, sir. No, sir, it is not. So I'm like, we ain't doing that. We ain't getting in on that jam.
Gotcha.
It's not just costumes and candy. So anyway, I am so excited because here is the thing, we do what we preach most of the time. That there are times that I fall short and have to apologize. But when it comes to these 6 phases, there is a true commitment, especially to the research phase. Wouldn't you say, Shane?
Yes, I would.
I mean, convicted.
Mhm.
Like we can't move on without the research. And there is a percentage of people, it's runs about 12 to 13% at all times, that hear the research and are like, I'm out. Peace. I'm going to go on and do what I want. I don't like what it says, and I'm not willing to change. I'm not willing to listen. I'm going to go do what I think is the best thing. And full disclosure, we've watched those people from afar on social media, because you can't help but tell on yourself that, they've sold their houses and moved into apartments because they have to offload debt. So there is something to be said about this future self that we're wanting to get to, both economically, with our impact on humanity. We can't get there without what we're going to talk about today. So I really hope that their ears will perk up and just listen again to this information, because it's so important. So there is something that really drives outcomes very specifically, called psychographics.
Big word. I like it.
So we
almost did a drum roll. I was like, well, I don't know how long she'll pause.
I don't have any music. I need some dramatic music, or you need to. I'm going to get you one of those little toy drums for Christmas.
There you go. Perfect.
You can roll it. That'd be great. Okay, we are actually recording this, Amy, so you need to pay attention. So anyway, psychographics is a set. It's like a set of information that tells us as advertisers. So if you own something, you're selling something, whether you're selling information, you're selling transformation, you're selling philosophy, you're selling mentorship, you're selling couches, you're selling toilets, you want your psychographics. This is just the truth of the matter, because they tell us what the people that buy our stuff put value on. It also tells us what their opinions are of things that are like our service or product. It also gives us insight into their personalities, their language, where they spend their time, why they spend their money the way they do. And so this is really important to us as owners, advertisers, product producers, developers of anything, is we want to know these things about the buyer. Why? Because the world we live in now is run by tech. It's just the reality. Everything has a tech stack. If we're going to get to people that buy our stuff, we have to use technology at some level. So you might have a simple Facebook page that you hardly ever use. That is tech. That requires psychographics. Maybe you're sending emails. That is also a bit archaic, but still tech that converts at a certain point. And we need to know why psychographics are important to that piece of tech. Maybe you have very sophisticated technology from the first step all the way through to the actual transaction. Maybe every step has a tech component to it. You also need to understand why psychographics are so important. So psychographics are exactly what algorithms use to group people into these societies online. So an algorithm has literally reshaped and is its own society. So just like in the early days wars and territorial takeovers and even catastrophic environmental events would shape a society, the boundaries of lines. That's what algorithms do for us today. And it requires some formula, some information within that formula. So the algorithm knows, what society do you want me to sell to? Right? So if we want to show up in a certain society with our thing that society wants, we have to know how that society operates, what their personalities are, what is their vocabulary, what is their opinion, and what do they put value on? Where are they spending their money? So with that, I'm going to tell you some things that, like, very big companies. So if we hired a company, you could pay on the low end 25,000, all the way up into six figures for a company to come in using software and a combination of tech and human effort to withdraw this psychographic analysis. Or you can use a more organic process that is very structured, but is more labor driven, not labor intensive. Right. Hear the difference here. It is labor driven, not tech driven, to get the same data for a much lower cost. But it is going to require the owner, founder, creator to be a part of that process. The other side, with the companies that come in, the third-party companies that come in and do it with tech and people, that is, they do it all for you. You have no idea how they got to that conclusion, and they produce a report that you may or may not find valuable. So I have done both ways. I have been given the data that I found no value in because I couldn't understand it. The things we cannot understand, we cannot value. So typically these companies come in, they require a big price tag, you pay it, you get a report, and it is such a low adoption rate. Less than 1% of companies or individuals that hire these companies to come in actually use those reports. On the other side, it has a little more labor responsibility to it, but the engagement, the actual adoption rate is over 60%. Why? Because the owner has some proximity. They're listening to the research. They're following, they're tracking the analysis numerically of the research, and they're starting to understand, this is important to me, and now I know why. So I have done both. I tend to lean on the latter, because I also have created that within the boundaries of my own company. And it is part of the work that we do with our clients. So here are some things that are involved in a psychographic study. There's focus groups, interviews that take place. There's also like set top box viewing data where you actually get to have proximity to the process, listening to their input, seeing what their responses are. Sometimes there's surveys, questionnaires, and quizzes. There's also a psycholinguistic dictionary that's involved in that process. We do pull out the psycholinguistics. We pay attention to the patterns of their vocabulary. There's website analytics, Google Analytics. There's browsing data that's involved. Then there's social media has its own addition of input to this psychographic study. And then finally, there's third-party analytics. So we combine all of that in one phase of our work without any tech, which is incredible because it's so fast. I mean, technically, our psychographic study can be done and completed in 3 days. Now, it's up to the user how they want to do it, but it's designed to be done in 3 days. So, Shane, that's the technical, logistical, high level, the 30,000 foot view. Why does this matter to someone like you that is a coach, that doesn't use a lot of tech, that is, you're an owner? Like, why does this matter?
Yep. Good questions. There was a point in time where I didn't think it mattered. There was a point in time where I thought, I just need to go hire somebody to gather all that information so that they could they could do that part that I didn't understand. And then that would tell me, it's almost like they would come back with a magic bullet was my hope. They're like, hey, say this to these people this many times, and then it unlocks the magic box of money follows. Even so much so that at one point in time in a previous company, we did an outside study, just like what you described. All those elements were a part of the, I mean, even back then, this has been 10 years ago, even back then, just the psychographics was fascinating for us to be able to see pie charts. I mean, the whole deal. Here's the vocabulary, glossary of terms, all this stuff. So we had the company do that, and we sat around the table as a leadership team, and we looked and we thought, nah, they don't know they don't really know, they don't know us, and we didn't hear, from our customers, what if they talked to the wrong people? What if it wasn't the people who really knew about the product? So we gave all of these excuses for why we didn't use any of that we paid $25,000 for. And you thought we'd have learned our lesson the first time. No, we did it again. We did it the second time. We thought, you know what? Let's go do it one more time. Because maybe we missed something. Let's just do it again. So we did the same study again. A second, $25,000. We're talking $50,000 to discard all the information that came to us. So when so I've been on the side of saying, you know what, this doesn't matter, because I thought all that mattered was my opinion. I thought that it was my responsibility to prescribe some things to the market so that they knew what was good for them, and they would see that in me as a coach, and then would just by default want to hire me. And that didn't work any better than it did me hiring somebody outside to be able to come in and tell me what we thought. It didn't work that way, because people don't like to be told what to do, number one. But number two, I can't really discern what the need is if I'm not listening. Right. So if all I'm doing is just spending time thinking about me and my stuff and what I want to do and how I want to achieve it and all that kind of, like, what I do is I start to believe that knowledge is what makes this possible. The more that I know about me, my product, what outcomes it produces, all the, it produces this idea that knowledge is the catalyst for growth. And it's not. People are the catalyst for growth.
Wow. You got to say that again. Knowledge is not
the catalyst for growth. People are the catalyst for growth. So if I can spend 40 hours a week thinking about the tools that I want to create, the way in which I want people to experience my coaching process. And I can spend all of that time and not coach anyone, because people don't come to me for coaching. They come to me because they want me to solve their problem. Now, coaching is the method that I use to help them do that, but they don't come to me and say, Shane, please give me coaching. They don't care how much I know. They want to know how much I care. And the only way that I can demonstrate that I care about them is to know their personality, to know their vocabulary, to know what it is that keeps them awake at night, to understand how it is that they interact and respond to the realities that come out of the problem that they're dealing with, that my coaching process can help. If I can't demonstrate that in my actions to them, that I care, they'll never experience any of my knowledge. So knowledge isn't the key to success here. People are. And when we're talking about people, we have to start with listening. I mean, when's the last time, hang on now. When's the last time that somebody told you something that you need to do that you felt good about that? I bet it has been a long time. So somebody, hey, Shane, you know what you ought to do is, and you're like, well, by golly, no, that's not the way. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. For them to experience your care, you got to do a lot more listening than you got to do talking. And that's where this research process that you're talking about, and specifically the one you've built within your business, is designed to begin to understand. Like Zig Ziglar, he made the statement one time, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. I used to think that was the most manipulative statement ever. I was like, man, that's a bait and switch. What is he talking about? And really what he was trying to communicate, and what I wasn't ready to hear yet, was that when you go and serve people without the expectation of anything in return, you get more than you ever expected back. Like, so should we have, we should have goals and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is the pathway to success, outstanding success, is through people, not knowledge, not being a great entrepreneur. Like, hey, starting something and sustaining something, two different things, right? Like, and it's not in the idea of, I was the first one to get this, hey, I'm the expert. People don't care about your expertise. People care about their problem. I've got to understand their problem before they'll even want to consider whether or not my expertise will help them solve it. That starts in the beginning, not on a sales conversation. That starts in the way in which I'm connecting and communicating throughout the process of client acquisition. If I don't do research, I'm making it up. I'm just making it up, right? Or I'm guessing, or I'm assuming, or I'm making it up and hoping I'm right. That is not a strategy that I want to use to build a business. Hope.
Yeah.
Like, I believe in hope. Don't hear me wrong. But I'm saying hope is not a strategy to build a business, right?
Yeah.
And it does take people, and that starts with listening. I'm rambling a bit, but I hope you see where I'm going.
No, it's so good. I'm listening to you, and I'm reminded of, there is I don't know the name, and I couldn't pronounce it if I did, but there's actually an island in the world of a people group that have never been engaged by any other outside people group. Okay. So they exist today in 2023. Wow. Can you imagine that there is an island of people amazing. That is only their people? There's never been outside habitation that's been allowed to come in. And there was a young man, he was in his 20s. Well, actually he was a teenager when he found out about this group, and he felt compelled to go there and share a very specific message with this particular group of people. So he started to study these people, their language. He learned their language, which is a language I've never heard of before. It is an undignified civilization. So the way they handle outsiders is not something we should talk about on here. So he learned that. He learned why they handled that outside civilization the way they did, because they were terrified they would bring sickness onto their island and that their people would be eradicated. So that was their value, was protect our civilization. Okay. So they had their own crops. They had everything they needed on this island. There was no reason for them to leave and no reason for things to be brought in. So long story short, this kid studied for years, studied the language, studied the people, studied their values, studied all of the stuff he could get his hands on. Because there would be like studies done where they would fly over this civilization and study them, right? Study their moves, study their rhythms, their patterns, their habits, their routines. And so he also did the same thing as much as he could get. So then no ship or sailor would actually take him to the island, because anyone that got within so many feet they were killed. So, right. So he found these fishermen in this tiny little boat that he convinced to take him within so many feet of this island. And he would ride back and forth in a boat outside of the boundary and yell in their language, "I want to help you." And he would float food and float medical supplies, things that he knew they needed, but nobody could get in and they weren't going to get out. Floated it to them, and they would stand on the beach and talk back to. It was the first time anyone had been able to engage this society. Now, the reason why I think this story comes to my mind is because what you're saying is that if we're going to engage a society we never have with a thing that we have to make them more important than the thing that we have. Getting the thing to them is not as important to them as them thinking, you know me, you care about me, you've got some language that I can understand, so I'll let you a little bit closer.
Yes.
And that is where tech puts the value, is on the engagement first between the two. Do you like what this person says? And are they engaging back? And if that's not happening, nobody's going to see your stuff or your ads or buy your stuff. It doesn't matter. Yeah. And that's what I hear you saying is, look, I had to learn that the value was truly on the other person. Now, this is an archaic principle of human engagement that algorithmic engineers and scientists have adopted. And we have to honor that as as a person or a company that has a consumer-based product of any kind, whether it's philosophical in nature or it's concrete, we have to honor the culture that we're in to some extent.
Yeah. And one of the reasons is because there are so many other people doing the same thing that you do, that just because you do it doesn't make you stand out anymore. I'm thinking about we recently had a plumber that we worked with. Okay. And when I was looking for a plumber, I was not looking for the one who said established in 1925. I didn't care. I did not care. And I saw it like established 1925, established 1904, whatever. Like, right. I'm like, I don't care, because where we are today, you could have started, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and you could be an expert. Yes. I want to know that you get what I'm looking for, because I wasn't looking for longevity. I didn't care about longevity. Like, I mean, if I was you go on YouTube and figure out how to do a whole lot of stuff. Like, I wasn't looking for longevity. I was looking for some very specific things, and all of them had to do with what was most important to me, none of which had to do with the plumber. Right. Like, but if that plumber could communicate to me, they got it, they understood me, they were looking for people like me to be able to help. That's where I moved to. And that's why I called Grayson. Right? Because I went to Grayson's website after I found him on Google, and I saw the comments that other people were making. I was like, that's what I'm looking for.
That's my society. Those are they're like me. So I can like Grayson.
That's it. I was looking for someone who got me, right? Like, yeah, same deal. It's like, just because you do it, and the equivalent of it in the coaching world is certification. Like, hey, newsflash, just because listen, I got I have 4 certifications. That doesn't sell nothing, man, because people don't care. Right. They don't care. That's like saying established 1925. So what? Right. Can you help me? Do you know me? Yeah. Because every one of us believes we're different, and we are. And we are. Yes. So when someone can speak to our uniqueness, now we want to move a little bit closer and discover, just like those people on that beach. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so true. And we have to remember that if we are going to operate systems, or we're going to operate anything that has a return of any kind, I mean, this could be something as simple as cooking. You've got to know what it takes to get what you want. And sometimes it changes based on the machine, so you've got to pay attention, but the ingredients matter. And for us as owners, the ingredients in our company must include psychographics that we respect and that we listen to and that we make really solid decisions off of. Otherwise, we will be like an up and down roller coaster ride profit wise, and we won't actually hit the greater impact that we're after. So I hope that today you will remember that systems do run your business, but it is you and I that run those systems. And Shane and I will pop up again soon, making no commitments as to when, but we'll be around.